The breakaway Loyalist volunteer force, formed after the UVF stood down its organisation in Portadown, admitted leaving the bomb defused in Dundalk at the weekend. But admissions of responsibility have not followed other attacks, such as the killing of Sean Brown in Ballachy. The Chief Constable says he has no doubt the constituent parts of the so-called Combined Loyalist Military Command have been involved in violence. But their political advisers have their own interpretation of that statement.
When I listened to the interview he did on Good Morning Ulster, I don't think that he actually used all of those words. I think that what he was saying was that they had been involved in the past. We were the first Progressive Unionist Party to argue that there should be no claim, no blame was wrong. And what we said was, when we thought it came down to the UVF or Red Hand, we actually said that it had all the hallmarks of those organisations. We don't deny that things are difficult.
The Chief Constable of the RUC, Ronnie Flanagan, used the terminology of a gradual disintegration of the Loyalist ceasefire, and I would tend to agree with that analysis also. We have a fraying at the edges of the Loyalist ceasefire. And I think that while that is disturbing, naturally, it could certainly have been an awful lot worse.
But the continued involvement of Loyalist parties in the Stormont talks has now been challenged by the Alliance Party.
If it turns out that we are the only people who appear to be concerned about what's happening with the Loyalist cessation, well, then so be it. We're prepared to stand out on our own because we believe that it's right to raise these questions. Not because we want to wreck things, but because we want to stop other people wrecking lives and wrecking the whole future of this place.
The government's current position was put by the Prime Minister during his recent visit here. He said the Loyalist ceasefire had been maintained in what he called formal terms. Chris Capper, Newsline.
And our Chief Security Correspondent Brian Rowan joins me now. Brian, what would be the consequences of excluding them from the talks?
Well, I think the Loyalist parties would argue that their presence in the talks has, in a sense, restrained the paramilitaries, made the paramilitary leadership think about the implications of violence, and those Loyalist parties would argue that if they were outside the talks, that restraining influence would go, and the consequences of all of that would be very serious.
Now, the Prime Minister said that he formally thinks that the ceasefire does hold. Is that the case?
Well, on the day that the Prime Minister made those comments, the Chief Constable was interviewed on Good Morning Ulster, and he gave an entirely different assessment. He said that the constituent parts of the Combined Loyalist Military Command, in other words, the Red Hand Commando, the UVF and the UFF, have all been involved in violence, and he talked about that ceasefire disintegrating, and I think that's the hard-nosed security assessment of the ceasefire. And the facts are that in the wake of the IRA attack on the Thiepval barracks back in October last year, the Combined Loyalist Military Command decided at that stage that there would be a measured response to further IRA actions, and since then we've seen about a dozen Loyalist attacks.
Now, there's this other Loyalist group, the LVF. How seriously should it be taken?
Well, it's a group which is outside the control of the Combined Loyalist Military Command. It is a loose cannon within loyalism, if you like. It has been responsible for one murder. It's placed this bomb in Dundalk, and I think the security assessment of that organisation is that it's growing in strength.
Now, finally, do you think the government are going to assess the situation? And if they do, when will they do that?
Well, I think the type of action that is envisaged by the Alliance Party will force a judgment to be made, but I don't think anyone at this stage is off the view that the Loyalist parties are about to be ejected from the talks. Now, the problem in all of that is that that gives rise to the sense of double standards, that Sinn Féin is excluded because there's no IRA ceasefire, and yet the Loyalist parties remain at the table while Loyalist violence continues. And I think the reality of the situation is the more we see of Loyalist violence, the closer we get to the point where the Loyalist parties will be asked to leave the table.
Well, still in the north, the hardline breakaway group, the Loyalist Volunteer Force, have this evening claimed responsibility for a bomb found in Dundalk following a coded warning yesterday. This evening, Gardaí confirmed that the device contained explosives of the same type used in the device planted by Loyalists outside the Sinn Féin office in Monaghan last March.
The device was found yesterday in a laneway off Clanbrassil Street in Dundalk after a coded warning was phoned to UTV in Belfast. It was in a plastic bag with a thermos flask and an alarm clock. Experts later said it also contained a detonator. A controlled explosion was carried out and the device was made harmless. The caller also warned of a second bomb planted at Dublin Airport, but a search revealed nothing. Immediately there were suspicions that the Dundalk device contained a commercial explosive called power gel, the type used in a bomb planted by Loyalists at the Sinn Féin office in Monaghan last March, which failed to go off. Those suspicions were confirmed this afternoon by Garda technical experts examining the bomb. They said this evening it contained a small amount of power gel, and they also confirmed that the detonator failed to go off. And this evening, the Loyalist breakaway group, the Loyalist Volunteer Force, claimed it planted the bomb. It also said there would be more no-warning bomb attacks. The LVF is the group believed to have been responsible for the killing last month of GAA official Sean Brown in Balahy, County Derry. The Dundalk bomb is certain to lead to a tightening of security in advance of the general election on Friday week. It's also likely to fuel fears of a return to violence by Loyalist paramilitaries if Sinn Féin is allowed into talks at Stormont before a new IRA ceasefire.